All right, folks, you guys know tonight's the big event. It'll be me and maybe Eli, and we'll chat during it on YouTube Live. But hey, I got to get up the actual thing and finish my edits and stuff. So I'm actually just putting forward this final video. If you want some background on what's going on in polygamy skepticism, I'm cobbling together two of them. You're going to notice this first part of the video, I describe the evidences that's going on in the movement. And then at the end, I talk about the rationale. And I want us to go in understanding what's going on here. In this opening part, I'm going to talk about the need to disprove Clayton, which is so important to Jeremy's mission here. But then at the end, I'm going to get personal and I'm going to talk about religious motivations and my own religious motivations, as well as my friends, my opponents, my friends of the polygamy skeptic movement. And as I say, we're not too different. If you're watching this video, chances are you already have some idea of what polygamy skepticism is. Of course, this is a movement that claims Joseph Smith was never involved in plural marriage, that Brigham Young and the apostles were the instigators of this marital practice among Latter-day Saints, and that there's been a conspiracy to make it appear as if Joseph Smith was involved. Polygamy skeptics have to deal with a series of pretty convincing evidences that Joseph Smith was, in fact, the initiator of plural marriage among the church he founded. First, we have those that are accusing Joseph Smith of plural marriage at a time he himself was publicly denying it. This includes William Law, a member of the First Presidency, and others who allege that Hiram Smith actually read a plural marriage revelation in front of the Nauvoo High Council. Of course, this would be the easiest source of evidence to push against, where we don't like trusting critics of Joseph Smith for our understanding of Joseph Smith. If you're interested in why dismissing all critics' accounts is bad history, you should read the groundbreaking and still important article of the recently deceased mother of Mormon studies, Jan Ships. It's called Prophet Puzzle. It talks about how we need to look at both positive sources and negative sources to get the full picture of Joseph Smith. Second, polygamy skeptics are going to have to respond to those who said, once polygamy was public in Utah, those that said, Joseph Smith told me about plural marriage. Joseph Smith taught it to me. He married my sister. Joseph Smith married me. We were sealed together on this day in Nauvoo, and Emma knew. The argument there is that there were certain social pressures. You were going to be given a higher status if you go along with the standard story that's being promoted in Utah. But the most difficult source to respond to is contemporary records. You're going to have to deal with William Clayton's journal and the Revelation of July 12th, 1843, both key contemporary sources that firmly established the practice of plural marriage in Nauvoo. The Journal of William Clayton is the source for understanding Joseph Smith's plural marriage in Nauvoo. This is an account of Joseph Smith's secretary. Here you have a record which very clearly lays out Joseph Smith's practices, doesn't seem retrospective. So how are you going to make sense of that contemporary source? And the response is to allege that this is a forgery. William Clayton is the problem. And Jeremy Hoop thinks by taking on Clayton, by trying to dismiss these records, by questioning who Clayton is and if he's somehow motivated to make this up, that in fact, that's the key to respond to what they call the standard polygamy narrative. There are other evidences that polygamy skeptics have to respond to, but these are the big ones. My argument is that the polygamy skeptic movement is a religious movement. masquerading as a scholarly one. It's really important to differentiate this. Scholarship is a sort of methodology, a presentation, a certain type of argumentation. I don't oppose religious movements. I have no interest in arguing with a Catholic about the nature of the apostasy or arguing with an RLDS member about the nature of revelation. I might do that on a personal basis. I don't get like a real zeal in trying to prove my religious beliefs, particularly with the bludgeon that is scholarly rhetoric or the claim to be a scholar. However, there's a lot at stake when someone does do that. Particularly, this is how you're trumping other people's narratives. We see this all over the place. And of course, many of the people who are polygamy skeptics would actually call foul if someone such as myself was doing that. I'm saying it's a religious movement. Now, what exactly does that mean? One of the responses to this is, wait a second, Chris. Many of these polygamy skeptics belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Others are covenant Christians, as those associated with Denver are currently called. Others are, I suppose, Bickertonites now. We've had some recent baptisms. Others are restorationists. And others are associated with Doctrine of Christ movement, such as Justin Griffin. If I understand correctly, the big voices are broken down in those three, right? People who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, those who associate with Doctrine of Christ, and those who promote the teachings of Denver Snuffer. Well, can something be a religious movement and be interdenominational? Obviously. If you've heard of the social gospel or evangelicalism or fundamentalism or mainline Christianity, all of these are religious movements that go across denominations. I'm certainly alleging this is like those. It has a shared story about the past. It has a shared creed. It's not specific to all things. There can be differences of opinions about all sorts of things. But within the polygamy skeptic movement, there's a lot of agreement. And part of this is that Brigham Young is a sort of King Noah and horror figure, an antichrist in the history of the Latter-day Saint restoration. That to me is pretty huge. If you say you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but you believe the prophet who is the link between Joseph Smith and Russell M. Nelson today is a horror figure, is an antichrist figure, it seems to me that's a way to undermine religious authority within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I wonder, when someone's championing a movement like polygamy skepticism, if the purpose of their membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints isn't actually, one, a sort of cultural desire to remain the religion of your fathers, but I wonder if it's not to take advantage of the resources available by this powerful group. Mainly its membership, which then serves as susceptible to missionary efforts from polygamy skeptics. There's a motive. Anyways, I want to confess that I'm involved in this for completely religious reasons as well. The only reason I'm doing a video series addressing polygamy skeptics, and even the only reason I'm addressing the claim to be scholars in this journal, Mormon Polygamy article put out by Jeremy Hoops, is a religious one. I think this is an idea that's harmful to my people, that's led people astray. You've seen all these people say really negative things about me, and I don't view them as enemies. I don't view them as people bullying me. I view them as people wounded. That's why I'm doing this. I believe people are actually harmed by this movement. I think Michelle Stone, Jeremy Hoop, Justin Griffin, I think they're pawns. I'm religious, right? I'm telling you from my heart here. I think they're pawns, and the purpose is to undermine the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is perfect, but as a believer in restored Christianity, I believe we have prophets and apostles to bring about the unity of the faith. And so, Justin, Jeremy, Michelle, so on, if part of your message is that we shouldn't take seriously the teachings of modern prophets and apostles, then I think you're actually causing harm to the unity of the faith. Now, I would dismiss this sort of thing like the vast majority of scholars have, but I have a vested interest in discouraging it. My bias actually isn't that different from the bias of these polygamy skeptics. We both want the same thing when we are having this conversation. This isn't about secular scholarship at all. I'm going to use the method of secular scholarship, but that's not the goal here. I'm not trying to criticize this journal or Jeremy Hoop or anyone else because I think it will win me points with scholarly friends. It's not going to benefit me at all. No, I'm doing it for the same reason they are, because we want to bring people to Christ. And we want to do this by strengthening their faith and the restoration of the gospel, as brought forward by Joseph Smith. Every time I talk to a polygamy skeptic about what attracted them to the movement, they always tell me that someone they love has stopped believing in the restoration because they were upset to learn that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. This is strange to me because I never thought he wasn't. But many Latter-day Saints haven't given it much thought, or starting a few decades ago, heard versions of the past that claimed Brigham Young was the real author of plural marriage, and that it was started because so many men were dying on the trek west. This was never the case. So when these individuals finally learned that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, it caused them lots of heartburn and ultimately led them to abandon the faith. So that means polygamy skeptics often believe that their version of the past could save church members' testimonies. I firmly believe this is a bad move. I think that the evidence suggests that Joseph Smith believed he was commanded by God to institute plural marriage. I think that Brigham Young and others followed in his footsteps, and I believe, and again, this isn't a scholarly moment here, I believe they were called of God, and that plural marriage was something that God actually desired his people to live in the 19th century. I know that's hard. I also, like my polygamy skeptic counterparts, don't want people to stop believing because our ancestors were asked to do hard things. I think by giving them a version of facts, that is, by giving people a version of facts that is not substantiated in the historical record, it will eventually lead these church members to have more faith struggles than by just dealing with the hard thing itself. After all, now they will have to feel deceived as well. In fact, I think the church's approach to difficult historical matters in the 20th century led to many faith crises in the present. Now, I also think we should all give Brother Joseph the benefit of the doubt. And that's why when I am ministering to individuals struggling with historical issues, I don't try to obscure anything that might cause them heartburn. Instead, I try to help them understand the circumstances that might better contextualize the past.